Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Elevate with C&M Coaching. My name's Maggie. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I apologize I haven't had a podcast in a little bit. I have been doing so much traveling. Summer is always one of those times where it makes it really difficult to get a podcast regularly out because I'm doing presentations and I'm speaking and I've got a bunch of other stuff going on. Of course, we have these conventions and things, but I'm happy to be back today. If you're going to be in Texas, it's going to be in San Antonio, Texas. TIADA is actually coming up this weekend. I'm going to be speaking on Tuesday, July 25th at 11 a.m. on payments and arrangements, creating effective collections calls. You can also find us in the expo hall. We will be there as well. So don't forget to come find us if you're there, and make sure you come to my session. It's going to be really a great one. And I actually want to talk a little bit about collections calls today because obviously I'm going to be speaking on the topic in a couple of days. So I've been scouring collections calls, trying to find good ones to play for my presentation. And today we had a little bit of a situation occur here, and it just kind of was one of those things where I thought this would make a really good podcast topic because it's a very popular opinion, and I want to kind of put it to bed, if you will. I know I'll never be able to fully do that, but I think it's important to talk about it. So when it comes to collections calls, there's a variety of different laws that, lenders really need to follow. And I am not a lawyer. There are many in our field that you can call. I highly recommend Steve Levine at Ignite Consulting Partners. But, when it comes to the laws and it comes to collecting, there are fine lines and you have to follow a lot of these rules. There's new rules that were just implemented, of course, and now car dealers are being treated like banks. So there's a lot of verification and things that need to occur. So I think that some of the information that we train on here at C&M Coaching can sometimes be viewed as excessive. I would disagree with that because I think it's very important that you're not only following the rules and the regulations, but that you get your customers into a routine. One of the easiest things for you to do is get them used to consistently verifying specific sets of information so that when they call, they're actually prepared to make their payment or to go ahead and discuss a way to set up an arrangement or a promise to pay. And we can also set them up for success by making sure that they understand we expect them to give us the card information so that we can automatically draft that payment on that agreed upon date. Now, you can't require that, but it is something that you can ask for. And if they get into the habit of doing that early on, they're always going to be prepared to do that, which can increase your success of that promise to pay actually going through as scheduled. So one of the things I want to talk about today is account verification on collections calls. So I understand a lot of times we are dealing with situations where you may have a customer that calls in once a week. And I totally get that. I would not want to call Verizon Wireless every single Friday and have to verify all of my account information every single Friday. But the thing is if I want to call Verizon and discuss my account with them, I have no choice but to do that. They are not going to let it slide. Even if I just called yesterday, let's say I want to call my bank and ask a question about my account. I can't call at 12:30, call back at 12:31 and not verify my identity. They're not going to tell me a thing about my account unless I verify who I am. And that is not just to cover their own butts, but it's also to protect me. I am the consumer and I don't want other people getting my banking information or having details about my wireless carrier either. So it makes sense that we would do these verifications. And if you teach your customers early on that these are things that we expect them to do in their phone calls, you're going to run into less trouble in the long run. Now, an example of this would be like verifying employer and address and phone number. I realize that we don't want to ask these things every single time that person calls in. But you should be making sure that you're asking them at least once every 30 days. And it is not unreasonable to update an account every 30 days. People move. Dealing with challenge credit customers can be challenging. They change phone numbers. They use burner phones. They move frequently. There's a lot going on. So it's totally reasonable to ask them if anything has changed with their address, their employer, or their phone number. But these are some of the things that we see pushback on. Oh, I just talked to this person last Friday. Why do I have to ask that again? Well, here's what I would recommend that you do. On the first conversation that you have with this customer in the new month, verify everything. What's your current address? Who's your current employer? What's your current email address? What is your current phone number? Is there a secondary phone number? get all of your ducks in a row. After you've done that, put a note in the system. Info verified July 2023 MP, right? Your initials. That tells everybody that for the rest of the month of July, we don't have to go through all of these components again. What we can do is instead say, hey, Mr. Customer, please verify the last 4 of your social or your birthday and your vehicle, because you still want to get access to that account by some sort of personal verification, things that person should only know. This is, of course, to protect both of you. You don't want to be giving out information to an unauthorized party, right? Especially when we're dealing with finances. So make sure you verify their identity. And then if you can see in the notes that someone has already looked over this account, all you have to say is, has anything such as address or employer changed since we spoke last? Pause and let the customer answer. If something has changed, then go into the account and update it. The other thing that I will say is sometimes I hear common sense items. I like to call them common sense items because we try to be very fair in our grading and scoring with common sense things. Like, for example, if the customer starts the conversation off with, hi, my name is Maggie Pagesic, we would give credit for obtaining first name and last name. But common sense items would be, my payment schedule changed, I need to set up a promise to pay. Right there is a red flag. Something has changed in this person's life. Maybe they got a new job. Usually employers don't just generally, up and change their entire payment processes. It can happen, of course. But this is going to be a red flag. This is going to be a common sense item. This is going to be one of those things where you want to say to the customer, oh, hey, you've had a change in how you're paid. Do you have a new job? Do you have a new pay schedule? Can you send us proof? Like, these are things that are kind of like a domino effect. If a person needs to set up a promise to pay, there's usually a reason for it. And one of your first questions should be like, when are you paid and what are your pay dates? And if something is new, this could be a red flag. Either they have a new employer or something has changed in the way their employer is paying them. And usually we can make accommodations to that if we just get proof from the customer. All of these things really do matter in the big scheme of things. You want to know where the person is living because they're driving your vehicle. You want to make sure that you have a current employer on file, because if you don't and they have a new pay schedule, that's going to negatively impact them making payments on time. And of course, email is a great way to send receipts or any sort of communications that we need if we can't get in touch with them via phone or their phone got disconnected. And then naturally you want to verify their phone number because it's your main method of contact with a collections customer. So all of these things are really important. So once a month, let's verify the employer, the home address, the email address, a secondary phone number. Also important, maybe ask them about their insurance carrier if that's information that you need. All of these things together help us to create a well-rounded customer who's going to be comfortable verifying this information at least once a month, and also help us to have a full and complete updated profile on the person that's driving around in one of our vehicles. So I want you to look at the big picture here and think about how easy it is and how simple it is to verify these few things once a month, and then the rest of the time just say, has anything on your account changed since we spoke last, such as address, employer, etc., and allow your customer to respond yes or no, and then next month we go back to verifying again. And the other thing that you can do at the same time is offer autopay. Suggest to the customer that they sign up for autopay so that they're not calling in constantly and spending time making payments, and the payments can get automatically drafted. It's a good idea to do it all in that one call, that very first time you speak to the customer each month, so that you can get everything sort of out of the way. And then those calls where they're just making payments are super quick and easy. And hey, has anything changed? No, it looks like we offered you autopay last week and you declined. Perfect. You're all set until. So when it comes to, not only making sure that you're protecting your consumers, but also protecting your own business, these simple verification tasks are not the end of the world. And it could be way worse. And I really think that we have gone too long with accepting the bare minimum and allowing the bare minimum of our collectors and not pushing them to do things further because they already have a tough enough job. But the problem is you could be putting yourself at risk for dealing with customers that are not authorized on behalf of the account, which is a huge confidentiality issue, and that is a position that no one wants to be in. Not to mention, a lot of times when we start training a new company, we will find that some of these accounts have never been updated. Customers had the vehicle for 2.5 years and we've never asked where they live in those 2.5 years. So you have a lot of outdated information, which doesn't help anyone. So, it's not like we're asking for a kidney here. We're asking for very simple, basic verification. And if these are not things that you're already doing, I highly recommend that you immediately start implementing them into your collections calls. I am also the hugest supporter of collectors. They have a super tough job. There is nothing more difficult, I feel like, in the buy here, pay here space than being a collector, because you have to weed through what's the truth and what isn't the truth, what excuses they've already told you, things they've used before in the past, and then do they really deserve to receive a promise to pay or be granted an extension or maybe move a payment to the back of the loan. These are all things that these people are trying to do on the fly, on the phone, and assess situations. So yes, I am fully aware that the job is difficult and challenging, and that is not lost by me or my staff in any way. But having up-to-date current information not only helps you establish the relationship between the collector and the customer, because we're looking for that trust. Where do you live? What's your current address, phone number, employer? But it helps you keep the account safe. Keeping the account safe is critical, as is collecting the money, and they can run together. You can keep the account safe and still collect the money. It's not like you have to do one or the other. The idea behind the phone call is that we do both and that we follow a process. It only takes seconds to verify the account and to make sure that the customer understands that this is something that we're going to be asking. We've updated our policies, so every time you call in, we're going to be asking you to verify your identity, and then once a month, we're going to ask you some more detailed questions just to make sure we have your account current. I'm sorry for the challenge, but I promise you it'll go quick, and we're doing everything we can to keep your account secure and protected. With that being said, can you please verify the last 4 of your social for me? And bam, you're done. Nice and simple to get into the account, basic verification, and then from there verify the other things. So of course we want to make sure that we're collecting the money, but we also want to make sure that we're not changing addresses. If someone says, oh hey, I moved, and it's not even the customer on the phone. Or one time I had a phone call where the couple was divorced and they had 2 separate addresses, and the rep read the address to the caller out loud, accidentally gave out the ex-spouse's address to the ex-spouse, and it was a disaster. You should never read information off to them and make them provide it to you, especially when we are talking about finances. This is a sticky area. Plenty of times I've compared this to like medical care. You wouldn't want your nurse telling everyone about your annual physical or what your weight is or things like that. So just remember, this is all designed to protect everyone involved. Top to bottom, it's a full circle of protection, and we want to keep those involved inside the circle and the people who shouldn't be outside of the circle. That's the reason that it exists. So if you're not implementing these things now, please start. They don't take minutes. It's not going to make your phone calls 5 minutes long. It's not going to make your customer, lose an additional phone call during that time. It's literally seconds in the conversation that it takes. Even with all this verification, you're still looking at about a 60-second, maybe a 90-second collections call. It may be challenging in the beginning, but I promise you that after a while, the customers will call up and will verify all the information right off the top of their head for you, and it'll be very simple. If you have more questions about this, please feel free to shoot me an email. You can go to our website, candmcoaching.com, and you can submit a request for more information. You can send me an email directly, maggie@candmcoaching.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I just highly recommend you put some bullet points together for your collectors to help keep them on track so that we make sure that we're verifying everything that we need to. Make sure you're following the safeguard rules, that you have a safeguard officer on your staff that's ready and prepared for all of these things. And thank you guys so much for joining me here today on this episode of Elevate with C&M Coaching. If you're going to be at TIADA, please make sure that you come find me somewhere. Again, I'll be speaking on Tuesday at 11 a.m. I will also be in the expo hall. You can find me in booth 102. So I will be back soon. I have a ton of travel coming up, but I do have a little bit of a break here for a short period of time. So I will do the best I can to get some more content out, play a couple of calls, and I hope you all have a great day. Hope to see you in Texas.